January 26, 1945, 2:20 p.m. The frozen fields near Holtzwihr, France, burned with smoke and thunder. Amid shattered trees and drifting snow, one man stood against an army. A single American soldier, barely more than a boy, was halting the advance of an entire German company. The attackers were no ordinary troops. They were the elite mountain soldiers of Germany's 2nd Gebirgsjäger Division, veterans of Norway and the Eastern Front. Yet before them, a thin Texan weighing scarcely 50 kilograms was rewriting the logic of war. Behind their lines, 6 Panzer IV tanks and assault guns sat idle. Their commanders, too stunned to advance without infantry support. 250 Germans, backed by armor, had been stopped cold by one American. Mathematically, the fight made no sense. 40 exhausted Americans, short of ammunition and food, holding ground against forces that outnumbered and outgunned them 6-1. By every calculation, they should have been annihilated in minutes. Instead, for a full hour, 2nd Lieutenant Audie Murphy turned those frozen fields into a legend. Murphy's journey to that burning tank destroyer began far from Europe's battlefields, in the cotton fields of Hunt County, Texas. Born June 20, 1925, to impoverished sharecroppers, he was the 6th of 12 children. His father vanished when Audie was 12. His mother died of illness when he was 16. Overnight, the boy became a provider. He told a neighbor, ammunition was expensive, every bullet mattered. Survival taught him precision, discipline, and a cold patience that would one day terrify German soldiers. When Pearl Harbor was attacked, Murphy saw escape from poverty. The paratroopers turned him away. Finally, in June 1942, after his sister falsified his age, the Army took him. At Camp Walters, Texas, his fellow recruits thought he was a child mascot. He looked 14, recalled Private David McClure. But when he got on the rifle range, his eyes went cold. He never missed. Murphy's baptism of fire came in Sicily in 1943 with the 15th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division. Amid the mountains, he discovered his brutal gift. He was unnervingly good at killing. Trained by poverty to move silently and shoot without hesitation, he excelled under pressure. Near Palermo, when his unit was pinned by a machine gun, he crept around the flank, killed the crew with grenades, and turned their own weapon on retreating Germans. He was 19. His commander wrote, "This soldier possesses a natural aptitude for combat extraordinary in one so young." At the Volturno River, when his squad was wiped out, he held off a German counterattack alone, killing 5 at over 300 yards with a borrowed sniper rifle. At Anzio, he earned a Silver Star for destroying a tank with a bazooka at point-blank range. By 1944, after surviving Sicily, Salerno, Anzio, and Rome, he had been wounded twice and decorated repeatedly. When his platoon leader was killed during the push through southern France, Sergeant Murphy took command. 18 men under his lead held off more than 100 Germans for 2 hours. Now, in January 1945, the 19-year-old veteran faced his greatest test. German forces, among them the seasoned 2nd Mountain Division, had been ordered to hold it at all costs. Company B of the 15th Infantry had been fighting non-stop for days. From 187 men, only 40 were still able to fight. Frostbite, hunger, exhaustion, they were spent. Murphy, nursing a leg wound he'd kept secret, commanded the remnants. "We were finished," recalled Private Anthony Abramsky. "Cold, starving, half-frozen. When daylight came, we knew we were sitting ducks." Company B's defensive line stretched thin along the edge of the Bois de Riedwer forest. Facing a mile of open field toward the German-held village of Holtzwihr, 2 M10 tank destroyers were their only heavy weapons. At 1 p.m., German artillery opened up. Shells burst in the treetops, raining splinters on the frozen soldiers. The barrage lasted half an hour. Then came the attack. 6 tanks fanning out across the fields, 250 infantry in white camouflage behind them. Murphy called for artillery support, but the enemy was too fast and spread out. The M10s fired and missed. Seconds later, an 88mm shell hit the rear tank destroyer, turning it into a fireball. The other slid into a ditch and was abandoned. The Germans were now 200 yards away, advancing steadily. Murphy made his decision. Sprinting through the artillery smoke, he climbed onto the burning M10. Flames roared from its rear. The heat was unbearable. Ammunition inside could detonate any moment. Still, he mounted the .50 caliber Browning machine gun and opened fire. He was standing on a burning tank, completely exposed, Abramsky remembered, but he kept firing. It was the bravest thing I ever saw. The .50 caliber gun roared like thunder, cutting through snow and men alike. Its heavy rounds shredded German infantry, tearing through snowbanks' armor and bodies. Murphy fired, in short, surgical bursts, calling artillery strikes over the field phone, even as bullets whipped around him. German soldiers tried to flank, crawl, rush, but every movement met precise, merciless fire. Sergeant Elmer Brawley watched through field glasses. They got within 10 yards of him, he said. He just cut them down one after another. Smoke from the burning vehicle blinded the enemy and concealed him. The tanks, unable to advance without infantry support, stalled and pulled back. Murphy's machine gun barrel glowed red. Ammunition dwindled. The tank beneath him groaned as steel melted. When the gun finally fell silent, he grabbed his carbine and kept shooting. Then, out of ammunition and surrounded, he did the unthinkable. He called artillery fire directly onto his position. "Fire on me," he told the observer. "That's an order." Shrapnel tore his leg, but he refused to stop. German soldiers caught in the open were obliterated. By 3:20 p.m., silence fell. The German company was shattered. Behind him, the tank destroyer exploded in a final roar. The field was littered with bodies, over 50 dead Germans, dozens more wounded. He limped back to his men, calm and expressionless. Then he lit a cigarette. German records mention the battle only briefly. Attack near Holtzwihr repulsed with heavy losses. Enemy resistance, stronger than expected, nothing more. Their silence speaks volumes. The veterans of Norway and Finland, lead troops who had never retreated, had been stopped by one man. That night, under cover of darkness, the Germans withdrew entirely. The ripple effect was immense. Murphy's stand allowed the 3rd Infantry Division to hold the forest line, securing the route for the Allied counterattack. The Colmar pocket collapsed within weeks, eliminating 50,000 German troops and opening the road to Germany itself. French Commander General Jean de Lattre, de Tassigny, later wrote, "The defense at Holtzwihr broke the back of German resistance in Alsace." On June 2, 1945. In Austria, Lieutenant General Alexander Patch presented Murphy the Medal of Honor. The citation read, "Alone and exposed to fire from 3 sides, he killed dozens of Germans and caused their attack to waver. For an hour, the enemy tried every weapon to eliminate him, but he held his ground." When asked why he had done it, Murphy answered simply, "They were killing my friends. If one man could hold them off, why risk the others?" But Murphy's courage came with a price no medal could pay. The boy who had stood atop a burning tank destroyer came home haunted. He suffered insomnia, nightmares, and violent flashbacks. He slept with a loaded gun beside him, sometimes in the garage with the lights on, terrified of the dark. In his memoir To Hell and Back, he wrote, "A demon seemed to have entered my body. I remember the experience as if it were a nightmare." His first marriage failed. His wife said, "He was two people, gentle by day, tormented by night." Yet Murphy turned his pain into purpose. Speaking openly about what was then called battle fatigue, he became one of the first public figures to advocate for mental health care for veterans. "I can't remember when I didn't have nightmares," he wrote in 1966. But what about the veterans who can't afford doctors or therapy? His advocacy helped shape legislation that led to better treatment for returning soldiers. The Audie Murphy Memorial VA Hospital in San Antonio stands as his lasting monument. Historians later analyzed the sheer improbability of his survival. Over 10,000 rounds were fired at his position during that hour. Statistically, he should have been killed 20 times over. He fought while breathing smoke, balancing on molten steel, and coordinating artillery by phonal while under constant fire. Psychologists call his mindset combat transcendence, a state beyond fear or fatigue. As expert Dave Grossman explained, Murphy combined skill, trauma, and loyalty in a perfect storm. He didn't fight for glory. In his final interview before his death in a 1971 plane crash, Murphy reflected, "People call it heroism. Maybe it was." Murphy received every U.S. medal for valor, the Medal of Honor, Distinguished Service Cross, 2 Silver Stars, Legion of Merit, 2 Bronze Stars, 3 Purple Hearts, and foreign honors from France and Belgium, 3 decorations in total. Every generation of soldiers studies his stand at Holtzwihr as proof that leadership is not about rank or size, it's about responsibility. Today, the battlefield is peaceful farmland again. Snow falls on the same ground where flames once lit the sky. Each January 26th, French villagers and veterans gather at a small stone memorial to honor the Texan who stopped an army. He wasn't superhuman. He was a scared, tired, half-frozen 19-year-old who refused to back down. The Germans couldn't understand it because it wasn't in their manuals. It wasn't tactics, it was spirit. One boy from Texas, standing on a burning tank, showed the world that courage has no weight.